In this example, I want to build something that is, let's say, really neat, and I want to touch briefly hair materials because there is really lack of information regarding hair materials, and hair is extremely powerful and really underutilized in Cinema 4D. Let's build a tennis ball. We want this tennis ball to really look good, so we will add hair, and I deliberately want to do it by hair because results that you can get with noises and stuff really don't look really realistic, and for best results the hair and the hair materials will give you exactly what you are looking for. And also in this specific situation, since we know the tennis ball has that small indents, that rubbery dents, and that is really impossible to do with procedural shading inside Cinema 4D. And the closest thing you can do is to use the spline shader. And you have the option here in the spline shader. Let me just load it to show you. You have an option here that you can load your custom spline. So you will disable this text spline, and you can use your custom spline that will be projected to surface, but that's a little bit tricky and unusual to deal with because it's a bit quirky and doesn't give really good result. And the best idea here is to really to produce and render your own color map or displacement map. So let me start here. Before I start, I want to, because the tennis ball is really a non-reflective surface and it's really rough, and it doesn't have any speculars, and it's always a good idea to change this illumination type here from blend to orange nair, which is really suitable for that types of surface. So let me go back to blend and watch here. You can see this specular is a bit pronounced. If I change the model to orange nair, it will become more uniform surface, and that is exactly what we want. Okay? And this font guy is really for really shiny plastics or something like that. So let's start. Certainly you can imagine this will be a complex shader, so we will load a layer shader like this, go inside that guy and start with our first and major feature. And I don't want to sound like a parrot, but almost always the most prominent feature of an object is its color or its surface appearance. I will start with color. We will add a simple noise, and let me go inside it. And here I will change colors to something representative to a tennis ball. So let's try. Once again, only thing that I do prior is really putting these colors into this slot. If you don't see this here, these color slots, you can press here this little arrow and enable this show quick storage. Okay, so I'll select this color for my first, and this kind of yellowish greenish derivation of this one on the second. Let me apply that material and see what do I get currently. And you can see that the scale is too big. I really want to have little tiny dots. I will try something like maybe 50. Let's see what we get. Oh, even way more, maybe 20. Let's even try 10 here and see what we get. This could work, possibly. And I believe I will enable this eyes of palms guy here, so just to get rid of that extra geometry. I want to add that indentations of the tennis ball. And I will use a bitmap for that. That is an image that I previously did, and I will briefly explain you how I made that image. So let me load it. So I will go here and load this tennis ball SPD PNG file. And Cinema will ask me, this image is not in the document search, but do you want to create a copy at the document location? This basically means, do I want to use the file from where it is currently? And to check that, I will say no. Or if I want to copy it where my project file is. So I'll say no. And now if I enter here, and this is exactly what the image looks like. I will just open a new window and scale it a bit so you can actually see. So what I did here is I made a simple plane and I did a completely black color to it. And I modeled this shape and added a completely white color to it in the luminance channel so I don't have problems when with lighting, and I rendered this from the top view. So it couldn't be more simpler because there is no way I can achieve exactly this with procedural shaders, okay? And that's the power of textures. Textures can really make your object look really realistic, okay? So nothing fancy, simple black and white render. Anybody of you can do that, okay? So help yourself with that techniques. And if I go back here, you will actually see that I have a problem, that this bitmap is not distributed as it should be, and we have to project that image somewhat different here. Okay, so let's try spherical because this is a sphere, and you will see its magic, and it's all good. Let's render that, and you will see that it really starts to resemble the tennis ball. We'll just put this on the top here, so I will drag it to be first, and you can see that it really eats up all that bitmap. And if I create a layer mask here, I will add unnecessary data because I want to add a noise, another noise shader that will represent those. Let me just disable this for a second. These lines. Okay, so instead of stacking many various layer masks, I want to use this bitmap as a blending mode as it is now. So it will take this first noise for all the black inside the bitmap, and I want to take from the another noise everything that will be fitted in the white. So let's try that. Let's just disable this for a second and load a new noise shader because I want to create it somewhat of a rubbery noise. Put it all the way down, and let me put some colors in there. Okay, so let's try this one and also this one, and let me do a render just to see where I am. And also the scale is too big, so I will turn this global scale way down, something like 1. Okay, this is somewhat better, but there is actually a noise type here that I prefer for such things, sema noise, and it's really useful. You can see the effect now on the surface. So let's try with that. Let's go back and enable all these guys and see what do I get if I put the blending mode for these two noises to be this bitmap. So let's try layer mask and see what we get. And we get the results we didn't expect. We actually want it to be the other way around. We can simply right click here, and instead of changing that and re-rendering, just say invert image. And now we have a really good starting point. And now it's the time for bumps, and actually I really like this displacement channel. It really always gives you the best results. You can create your shaders with bump channel if those surfaces will not be close to camera, if they don't have to be so well defined, but I really absolutely adore this displacement. So I will take all this layer, I will copy it and use it in displacement channel. So let's see what we get. So I will paste it and enable subpolygon displacement, because you can actually see now it doesn't have enough information to really deform this object. So I'll go with default values here, and we actually want the inverted results. I'll go into negative value here, so minus 100, and it will go the other way around. and this is a bit too much, so let's try something like 1 here, maybe even half a centimeter just. And here under displacement channel, I actually don't need this noise here, just in the way. And what I want to do, I want to really use this as an displacement. So I will just disable this noise and try to get that exact displacement. And you see it's the other way around, so we'll simply invert it. Uncheck this invert image, and we will get correct displacement. What I really want to do, I want this noise to be also displacing this inner part, just to get it more realistic. So to do that, I will have to, you see currently if I put that on the top, it will completely eat up that. So I have to use the layer mask. So I have to just copy this bitmap like this and use it as a layer mask and see what do we get now. This looks really good as it is now, and maybe I'll just even increase this displacement subdivision levels to something like 5 and see if we will get a little bit smoother result. Yeah, something along these lines. And I want to leave it as it is now, and I will just deal with hair material now. So I'll simply close all that and I will add some hair. To add a hair to an object, that object must be selected. So I will select it here and go here under simulation, hair objects, and I will add hair. And you see some sort of a madness happen. And really to control the hair, or actually these splines that are called guides, you'll have to set some parameters here and just concentrate on these major features that are in hair. Hair is incredibly powerful. Currently the length of our hair is 100 centimeters, and that is way too much. I would really want to set it to something like 5, maybe even less, maybe even 4, even 3. And this is the count, the number of guys, which actually has almost nothing to do with this count of the hairs at the end. It's just a visual guide where the hairs and how will they be placed. Here this segment settings is actually the amount of vertices that are on this each guide, and we don't want that many segments, simply because adding more segments adds to the render time, and this is really short, so it needs maybe half of segments. Let's try 4. And nothing will happen, but this will cut down the render time. So let's do a preview render and see where we are at. It really doesn't look as we expected. So the first thing we want to set is the color of these hairs, because this really sucks now, and we will set that. I'll just disable this in this hair material. And here under color channel, you see this hair material has some sort of same settings as our standard material, but it has many more options. I will delete this one and simply set this to a color, this one, and if we do a render here, you will see we now get the color we expect. You see this is too thick and it really doesn't look right. And you won't find thickness option here under hair object. You have to set the thickness here in the hair material. So let's try something really small, something like we could use this tip as our starting point. So we will just use this value for the root and see what do we get. And this looks a bit better, but it's also too thick, I presume. So let's try something like half of this. Actually, this is a good place to utilize that mathematical operations. So let's divide that with 2, and we can put 0.01 here and see what do we get. Let's give it some time to render. And actually this is what I've been looking for. Really fuzzy and thin hairs. Okay, so that would be it for now concerning this. Now we will deal with some specifics here. This is obviously too low amount of hair. So here under hairs I will increase this count number, and don't be afraid to put really high numbers here. For example, we can go with 50,000, and you will see now that this render will last for a few seconds. Now let's put this number of segments, this actual number of segments on here to exactly 4 as in guides, and see, do we get some speed in the render? And we do. We cut down that render time for a few seconds. 50,000 hairs is looking somewhat good, but we have to have more, even more. Let's try 100,000. So we will see what do we get here. Even better, and maybe I'll go even more than that. You can actually feel the hairs here. So it will generate and clone some hairs without adding to render time, but this actual count really always gives you the best result. So I will try 150,000, and this could work. Before that, you can see that we actually have a problem. We don't want hairs from these displaced lines. We want only that rubber material to show up. So you can do that by setting your material here, and you can control the length of these hairs with the texture, and this is exactly what we need. So where is black, it will be completely flat, and where is white, the hair will grow. Okay, or is it the other way around? So let's set the length here, just enable it, and we will load that same bitmap view. So you don't have to go to load image. The Cinema4D will store all the bitmaps here under this menu that you're already using in the scene. So let's load it and see what do we get. And really, to cut down render time, so I will just temporarily reduce this number to something like maybe 10,000, just to be able to really quickly see the results that I have here. So let's try the render and see what we get. And you can see a problem. And the problem is that this, if you remember from the start, the hair material doesn't have its own projection, which is really not correct, but it won't take the projection of this material. So you have to set it manually here, and you know how to set projections for your materials in inside the shader. So you will load here a projector shader, and if we enter it, we will see currently the mode is set to spherical, and you can see the results here. And we just have to invert this. We have to, you don't have an invert function here, but if you enter that bitmap, you can do it manually. So you have to invert this value, so black will be 1 and white will be 0. So that will completely invert the image. So look what happens now. It only grows where it should grow, only on this green surface. And here you have many options in here, which is really for a completely another tutorial set, and we will just enable them, a few of them with their defaults, and just with some randomness, and it will look much more believable. So let's add a freeze and see what we get. It's currently looking even more better. Let's add this kink too. So it's all about really playing around with the settings, nailing the exact look that you want. Let's curl those hairs too. Let's enable that curl channel. We're leaving all that to default values, and we can even twist them a bit. So let's try even that. Okay, something like this. So the hairs are really random. Okay, because human eye can really quickly catch if something is repeated pattern. And all now we have left is to increase this count. So 150,000 was the setting, and see what we get. There you go. It's a really decent tennis ball. You can now enable your shadows and really emphasize the quality a bit more. You can, of course, you can play with various colors and get even better results, but I think this is really sufficient enough to show you how to use a hair to represent that furry and hairy materials. This also works really good on cloth objects and some carpets and rugs and stuff like that. You see, even now with shadows, it's becoming even more better. And experiment with this. So let's build our next shader.